will be happy over there. And we'll shout and grin his praises. Everybody will be happy over there. There's a ransom of all ages will be singing round the throne, land where no one ever has a fear. And the Christians of all nations will join in the happy song. Everybody will be happy over there. Everybody will be happy, will be happy over there. We will shout and sing his praise. Everybody will be happy over there. There we'll meet the one who saved us, who has kept us by his grace, and who brought us to that land so bright and fair. We will praise his name forever as we look upon his face. Everybody will be happy over there. Everybody will be happy, will be happy over there. We will shout and sing his praises. Everybody will be happy over there. Number 988. 988. When the Savior calls, I will answer. When he calls for me, I will hear. When the Savior calls, I will answer. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. If my heart is right when he calls me, if my heart is right, I will hear. If my heart is right when he calls me, I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. If my robe is white when he calls me, when my robe is white, I will hear. If my robe is white when he calls me, I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening. I'll be somewhere listening for my name.
To this day, we thank you for all the many blessings you give us every day. We just, thank you that we could be here again today to learn more of you. We just pray that you'll help us to walk out our thoughts and minds and hearts. Father, we pray that you be with those that are yourself, especially pray for those that are against you.
All right, let's open up our Bibles, Genesis 25, as we continue our study through this book. We're going to be talking about Isaac. And Isaac has some of the least attention given to him than any of the patriarchs. Let's pick up the story in Genesis 25, verse 19. These are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel the Aramean of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah and his wife conceived. Does the story sound familiar? I mean, a lot of things that sound familiar, but again, Rebekah is barren, like Sarah. But yet, there's some differences, though, in the story. What's different with their situation and response in that of Abraham and Sarah? Well, they're younger, yes. Isaac and them have to wait till a whole lot longer. There's waiting, yeah. Yeah, so, and when there's no heir, there's not really an action to force that. What does Isaac do when she says, when she's bearing can't have a child? What does he do? He prays about it. Ask God. Why are there so many women? I mean, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel is going to be later also barren. Why so many women are barren in this story with patriarchs?
Maybe God made them that way so that the husbands and wives too would pray for children.
It sure seems like perhaps there is something about the barrenness that would direct them to him for prayer. What else would that indicate? And not similar, but I mean kind of connected to that. What does that indicate that these women are all barren? That God is working to bring this about, that he is involved, and this is not about human effort and accomplishment. Verse 22. The children struggled together in her. So she's pregnant. She got twins. They're struggling in her. If it is thus, why is this happening to me? She asked. So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. One shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red, all of his body like a hairy cloak. And so they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel, and so they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. Was 60 years old when she bore them. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So again, some similarities somewhat here, right? Why can we see a parallel between Jacob and Esau and these 2 nations that are wrestling, that represent 2 nations wrestling? Yeah, and Isaac, that these 2 will become 2 great nations, and those nations will be wrestling. Well, here it's their own, both of them are their children, but those 2 are going to be wrestling with each other. What do we know about, what does it tell us about who's the firstborn? Esau. What do we know about him? He's hairy. What does Esau mean? Hairy. There is one little girl here who, the Hancock's daughter, and that girl has got, it's almost like she's wearing a wig. I mean, she was just born. Her hair is up like this high. I mean, it's dark black hair. It's like, wow,
And but her aunt, Lindsay, said, well, mine looked just like that. But then she became a blonde. But anyway. But yeah, so he's Harry. He must have been, came out here. We're going to name him Harry. And what about Jacob? Yes, and why do they, so what does Jacob mean? Literally, it means like a hill. It's related to the word hill. It'll be connected with hill grabber. Why would they call him that? He comes out of the womb grabbing the hill. So all of you are wondering about what do you name your kids, you should just wait till they're born and just go with that. Which I don't know, that might be a problem because my middle son, when he was born, and Kim Cochran was there, she was a labor and delivery nurse at the time. When he was born, the doctor said, well, you've got a girl. And we didn't know. We were waiting. So, wow, great. And Kim Cochran said, that's no girl. And the doctor said, well, it's got a head like a girl. I don't exactly still know what that meant exactly, but could have named him Girl Head. You know, I'm sure Gideon would have not appreciated Girl Head. Probably Gideon was better. But anyway, but there's something about these names that also seem to indicate about their character, right? What will Esau be known for? And what is the hairiness kind of like a hunter, like a man of the woods, like an animal, somewhat there. And Esau, smooth-skinned Jacob, what does it tell us about him? He's a quiet man. Seemed like a mama's boy, as we read on in the story. He dwelled in the tents. So he's not the adventurer go out like his brother is, but that probably most interesting is that he came out. Why did that indicate him holding on to the heel of Esau? Yeah, he's wanting to be first. Is there really, can you tell much about kids that early? How early, with children, are there things about, their nature that indicate some things about personalities? How early did you see something in your children that said, yeah, I see that's interesting? Maybe you got a kid that just cried all the time. Maybe that indicated something. Maybe not. I don't know. But children pretty early on, you can tell some differences about some personalities, can't you? Well, I don't know typically if it's this extreme, but it is interesting that this story is revealing something about their nature so quickly. Can you think of any other biblical stories where the older is going to end up serving the younger, or the younger is going to end up ruling the older? Joseph, yeah. David was another one, yeah. And why that? Why this upside down the way it should be, where the younger ends up being more authority than the older? What do we think? Again, it kind of reveals this pattern like the barrenness. There are things that are not working the way they typically we think they should work. That God is intervening. God is doing something in ways that are not what you would expect. Common sense type things, perhaps. So why did God pick Jacob? Jacob may have been grabbing the heel. He may have wanted it, but why did God allow that to unfold, that he would be the greater and Esau the lesser? Does that seem unfair? That the womb, that there seems to be a destiny at stake, at play here? Okay. Yeah, so that's true, and that certainly is what happens with David. But, there are some things about Jacob's heart that's not exactly all that, where he is going to be a bit of a deceiver. And, but that's true. There's things that God knows that we don't know. I guess I'm asking a complicated question because Paul's going to take this up in Romans 9. Let's go there for a moment and look at his point in Romans 9 isn't to make a statement about Jacob and Esau. He's using them as an example to make a bigger statement. Let's go look at that in Romans 9. We'll get there not before too long in Romans. Romans 9, verse 9. For this is what the promise said. About this time of year, I will return, and Sarah will have a son. And not only so, but also when Rebekah had conceived children by one man, our forefather Isaac, though they were not yet born and had done nothing either good or bad, in order that God's purpose of election might continue, not because of works, but because of him who calls. She was also told the older is going to serve the younger. As is written, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated. What shall we say then? Is there injustice on God's part? By no means. For he says to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I have compassion. So then it depends not on human will or exertion, but on God who has mercy. For the scripture says to Pharaoh, for this very purpose I have raised you up, so that I may show my power in you, that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. So then he has mercy on whom he wills, and he hardens whomever he wills. I do think there's something we can see about, while Jacob is not very notable right now, Esau also has some real problems, and New Testament writers will look on Esau as having maybe a bigger flaw, for sure. But what is Paul's point here? Is Paul saying in Romans 9 that Jacob was the better person, that's why God chose him? What is his argument here? Yeah. God's sovereign. He chose Jacob over Esau. Deal with it. That's what he's telling the Jews. I mean, he's making a larger argument about why these Gentiles are invited into the family of Abraham and all this, but his bottom line is God, and God chooses to do what God chooses to do. And well, there are times we try to make nice, clear, explanations of why this happens and that happens. But now, I think it's all good. I think there's purpose in it all, no doubt. I don't mean to sound as if God is willy-nilly about it all or random. I mean, the Greeks' mythology believed that there was a myth that said that Zeus sits there, and every person that was created, he had two cans. There were jars. One jar that said joy, and the other said grief. And he would just reach into one can and throw in some of this and one from the other. And sometimes one got more joy and less grief, another got more grief and less joy, but he just picked it out randomly and threw it in there. I don't think that's how God operates. But I also think, on the other hand, that we have to understand God is sovereign, and there are things that God chooses to do in his divine wisdom that are beyond us to understand. But he does have a plan of how things are unfolding. Verse 29, now back to Genesis 25, verse 29. Once, when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted. Therefore his name is called Edom. What does Edom mean? Red. Jacob said, and that's what the Edomites, kind of laying that foundation of people later to be known. About every time we hear the Edomites in the Old Testament, they're just getting whooped up by Israel. But anyway, it's another note. Jacob said, sell me your birthright now. Esau said, I am about to die. Of what use is the birthright to me? Jacob said, swear to me now. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went away. Thus Esau despised his birthright. What are some things we can gather here about Esau? Yes. Short-term thinking. Sounds rather compulsive. maybe he really was about to die, but I don't know if a few minutes was going to be life and death. But you ever have your kids say, I'm dying? Well, seems to be a little maybe extreme there of things for him. Let's go to Hebrews 12 for a moment. The Hebrew writer certainly sees this as a moment of not a shining moment for Esau. Hebrews 12, verse 14. After listing the great men and women of faith in Hebrews 11, he is not now working through the highlight list in chapter 12. Chapter 12, verse 14, strive for peace with everyone, and for the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and by it many will be defiled. That no one is sexually immoral or unholy like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. For you know that afterward, when he desired to inherit the blessing, was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, though he sought it with many tears. What's the Hebrew writer's point about Esau here? Yeah, he had made, in that moment of mistake, the hope of reclaiming the blessing of the firstborn was gone. It was lost. I think that's kind of that Karen? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another very important thing, is valuing. He didn't understand the difference of weightier matters. So on the scale of his birthright versus this meal when he's really hungry, he went with the meal. And maybe we know people like that sometimes, that if they don't balance, they don't weigh things well. They look at things, well, this is what this weighs in this moment, and this is what this weighs in this moment, and they just don't have a good scale in their head of that. They think, yeah, it's worth it. I think a lot of people who have some temper problems think in that moment, they weigh it, yes, it's worth it, saying it, not knowing how much it will cost them, how much that action, that word will cost them much more than they ever thought the price would be, not that they had weighed at the moment. And unfortunately, some people they spend their whole life just finding themselves in the wrong end of that. His point isn't really about Esau. What's the Hebrew writer's point? Yeah, he's talking on a larger scale about just your relationship with Jesus, that that birthright, in a sense, of new birth, right? Don't give that up for things that offer temporal satisfaction. Now, recognize what's at stake, Then we move on. Anybody have any thoughts they want to say more about Isaac or Jacob there, or Isaac there and Esau? Okay, we'll come back to them a little bit more in a moment, but let's go to chapter 26 with Abimelech. 26 verse 1, now there was a famine in the land, besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. Any of our Bible people here want to tell us where the Philistines come from? There's some debate about that. Do you have any thoughts on that? Dog in that fight? Yes.
They invaded from west all the coastal cities.
Yeah, and so some people saw it was just that this museum in Crete, and they think that some of them could have been from those Minoan islands back in 12th century BC or such. That some of these, but anyway, who knows exactly? But yeah, people came from the sea over in that region. This Abimelech, by the way, is not the same that Abraham encountered back in chapter 20 and 21. Let's go to verse 2 now, chapter 26. And the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your offspring as the stars of the heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands, and in your offspring all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, my laws." So what is the God telling Isaac here? Or Jacob? No, Isaac. Sorry, I keep flipping back and forth there, right? So what is he telling him? Just what he told Abraham. Right? All those promises I made to him, I make to you. It is interesting that he said, because he obeyed my voice and kept my charge and my statutes, my laws. It's interesting that that he tells him that, where Paul really focuses a bit on earlier. It's making a much more of an emphasis, right, on the faith of Abraham. But the faith and his obedience are not separable ideas. Even here in Genesis, that the obedience is always going to be the natural fruit of faithfulness. But that's one of the ways you can see faith, is through the obedience. Verse 7, when the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "She's my sister." For he feared to say, "my wife," thinking lest the men of the palace should kill me because of Rebekah, because she was attractive in appearance. When he had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out of the window and saw Isaac laughing with Rebekah, his wife. That sound familiar? That's what Abraham did. The children learn, the habits of their parents by observing them often. So now, chapter 27, verse 1. When Isaac was old, his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." He answered him, "Here I am." He said, "Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver, your bow, go out to the field and hunt for me, and prepare for me a delicious food, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." Now, why is Abraham offering Esau? Why does he say, "I'm going to give you the birthright of the blessing"? He's the firstborn. But he's already sold that to Jacob. Yeah, nothing tells us that he knows that. Yeah, just kept that to himself. No, he didn't want to tell him, because that would be pretty stupid. Yep. Well, who did he tell that to? Rebecca. Yeah. So she knows, and by what she's acting upon, and by him saying, "I'm going to bless you," makes you think he doesn't, and her actions secretly around him would lead me to think she has stored it away but not told him. Because we're told then, now Rebekah, verse 5, was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. And so when Esau went into the field to hunt for game and bring it, she goes into action. Now, you're right. I think sometimes we look at this whole thing, which, okay, that could be a little smarmy for you to deceive your spouse because they're taking advantage of their lack of eyesight. be like to get them to sign a will over to another child than they were intending, something like that. Well, that's like go to jail kind of stuff. But she knows God's already told her the younger would serve the older. So anyway, verse 6, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speak to Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me a delicious meal so that I may go eat it and bless you before I die. So therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 young goats so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat so that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob said to his mother, behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man. I'm a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him and bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. His mother said, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice. Just bring it to me. Now, God may have told her that, but again, nothing here seems to present her as the noble necessarily track. There's a lot of deception, the things that she's doing here. And besides just the fact that God told her, why else may she be working on Jacob's behalf? She loves him more than Esau. So we also know that to be true. But again, why this conniving and secrecy and manipulation and all that around something very important, that the promise carrying through the child? If you're writing this story for describe the history of a great king, I think you might do some adjustments to the story. Why is it like this? What's going on here? John. Yeah, and this overarching narrative of God is blessing people in spite of them, not because of them. Really, this whole thing is not intended to say these are noble people and they are, such righteous people and act righteously and tell the truth and do the right thing. And God says, whoa, I'm so impressed with you and what you do. I'm going to bless you. No, this is everything. There's constantly a risk, right? And from barrenness to people that are weak and struggle and flawed, that God is working in the middle of all that, in spite of the obstacles that come up. And so then, see where I left off there. So it went, in verse 14, it gets those sheep, brings them to the mom. She prepares them, cooks it all up. She takes her and puts some of the best garments of Esau on Jacob. And then she put them on, and then she put skins of young goats. She put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Esau must have been really hairy. If your go-to is sheepskin, this guy had to be hairy. Man. So she puts it all over him. Then she gets all the food together. And he goes in with it, says, my father. He's probably trying to do his brother Esau's voice. Here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father. I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Now sit up and eat, so you can bless me. And Isaac said, how is it that you've found it so quickly? What did he tell him to do? Go hunt? How did they get it so quickly? Went out to the barn and killed them and brought them in, right? Because we need to move quickly before Esau gets back. So Isaac said, well, because the Lord your God granted me success. God's with me. God delivered them quickly to me. So Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you're really my son Esau." So the voice doesn't check, right? So he come in. So he draws in near, but they were ready. The voice is Jacob's, but the hands and that's Esau. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau. So he blessed him. And he said, "Are you really my son Esau?" And he answered, "I am." It really just seems like if you're lying through your teeth, you shouldn't get a blessing. I'm just throwing it out there. But, God's still working through all this. And then he said, "Bring it near to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." And so he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine and drank. And then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near and kiss me, my son." So he came near and kissed him, and Isaac smelled the smell of his garments, and he blessed him. And he restates the promises that he had made to Abraham. And how do you think Esau felt about that when he finds out? Verse 41, "Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, 'The days of mourning for my father are approaching, and then I'll kill my brother Jacob.'" You ever been so angry with your sibling that you got close to taking them out? My dad had there were six boys, and the one closest one in age to him, my dad was after him. "Let's play Cowboys and Indians." "Cowboy, no. And finally he said, "Okay, all right, you be the Indian, I'll be the cowboy. I get the Colt, old, those old guns, toy guns were like metal. So you go running through the house, you come through here." So he come running through, and he just, boom, just hit him with that knocked him out, just clean knocked him out in the head with that big gun. And says, "You're dead." So anyway, and then they'd light each other on fire. They did all kinds of stuff. I don't know how they lived. But anyway, I didn't have any siblings, so, I missed out on the joy of some of that. But, so, verse 42, "But the words of Esau came to Rebekah, and she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, 'Behold, your brother Esau comforts himself about planning to kill you.'" When Jacob feels really down, he feels happy when he thinks about killing you. That gives him a little bit of comfort. You need to get out of here. "Arise, flee to Laban, my brother-in-law, and my brother in Haran. Stay with him a while until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you've done." Probably says something also about Esau. Quick memory, anger, but then kind of explodes, and then maybe eventually calms down. "And when that happens, I'll send for you. But I don't want you both dead this day." So then we get into Jacob starts a family, and I want to at least get this one other story in here. Verse 10. We're going to end with this kind of little section. 28:10, chapter 28, verse 10. "Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. So taking one of the stones of that place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, 'I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Jacob. The land on which you lie I will give it to you and your offspring. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth. You will spread abroad to the west and the east and north and south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done all that I have promised you.' Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, 'Surely the Lord is in this place. I did not know it.' And he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place! There is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." You ever heard the dream about Jacob's ladder? And there's these angels going up and coming back down. He has this dream. What's that about? Let's go to John 1. John 1. So this is in verse 47. Nathanael is coming toward Jesus, and he sees him coming. And Jesus said, as he's coming, Nathanael, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit." John 1:48. Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are King of Israel." Jesus answered him, "Because I said to you, I saw you under a fig tree, you believe? Oh, you're going to see things greater than these." And then he said to him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on a ladder on the Son of Man." So what was that dream that he had about angels ascending and descending on a ladder? Couched in the fulfillment of promises that God's going to bless the whole world through you, Jacob. Who's the ladder? Jesus is going to be the ladder. Yeah. The way that heaven and earth will become connected in a new dynamic way, where heaven will come to earth and earth will come to heaven. That there will be a bridging between these two realms, and Christ will be the key to all that. And that's what that dream is about. Anybody have any thoughts or comments about any of that? Or see that differently or anything? I wonder what Jacob thought that dream was about. That he knew it was or how, again, with his family not very big at all still. That there was going to be this transformation that's going to happen over the world. But this imagery of this ladder that's going to bridge, heaven and earth. Not having any idea that one day a descendant of his is going to be that bridge, the perfect, the true Jew who will help to set the firm foundation of the covenant that God's going to establish with everybody. That's probably a good place to stop, because I'm going to start getting into you ever found somebody that end up you ever been around somebody that, well, I have a theory, some kids are the hardest for us to deal with when you have kids. Which do you think, what, for your experience, when you think about maybe a kid that was the most challenging to you, what was it about them that made them so challenging? Just like you. I find that's also often true. Well, Isaac's going to end up getting a father-in-law a lot like himself, and they're going to have a lot of fun with each other for a while. So we'll take that up next time. All right? Is there anyone here this evening like to take the first step of prayer? Give your some thoughts. Our gracious Father in heaven, we come to you at this time, and we want to remember Jesus, who came and he sacrificed himself on the cross. He gave his body up on that cross, and we want to remember that at this time, and we ask your blessings at this time when we pray. In Jesus' life.
shed. And this fruit of the vine represents that blood. And we just thank you for that assurance that we got through his sacrifice and through his resurrection. Bless those that partake. A few announcements this evening. Preparation for our